Hey guys, welcome back to CXO Conversations, live at IFF 2026. I'm here with my new friend, Carine Umutoni, Managing Director for Ecobank Rwanda. Carine, welcome to, is that your first podcast?
It's a first video for podcast. I've had one and it was just audio.
Okay, so I'm happy to take you through this new adventure then.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Give us a little background about yourself, Carine, please.
My name is Carine, as you said. I'm Rwandan. I'm a Rwandan who grew up, like many Rwandans, outside the country, and came back in 95. Schooled here in Rwanda and went to study abroad for further studies and came back to work. So my first career and my first job was in Rwanda. And I worked for a bank at the time called BCDI, and my journey in banking started.
You're a pure banker.
Pure, 23 years in banking. Really, my background has always been treasury, trade finance, institutional banking and financial institution, global markets. That's what they call it in the West. And until along my career, I moved a little bit outside banking, but into the investment banking side of the financial sector.
Always here in Rwanda.
In Rwanda, I did capital markets, investment banking. I actually set up the first investment bank in Rwanda. That is called BK Capital. And then I came back to banking to become the CEO of Ecobank Rwanda. I'm a proud mother of 3 boys. And then really a true banker.
So you're 23 years in the banking, that of course you don't apparent at all, if I can say.
Thank you.
Actually, triggered the first question is almost natural, right? So you have seen in 23 years, probably I want to say in the last 15, all of a sudden fintech coming up, before maybe here a bit remotely, out of US and Europe, the Revolut and all these guys, slowly coming, down. Until, I don't want to say the explosion, but certainly, the big waves, right? The first big investments, the first African unicorns. I'm curious how someone that has such a variety of experience, as well as, in different institutions, how did you live that?
It's a very interesting question, because even today and yesterday, I was telling my colleagues that every time that there's an inclusive fintech forum, I feel challenged. It looks like everything that I know, I need to unlearn everything. So as you said, I worked into traditional banking. That's where I started, where at the time, banks would close at 3 p.m.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
And would close also for lunch. So it was very normal for clients to come and say, oh, people have gone for lunch, come back. To today, where even in the remotest area, people use their phone to send money, or people tell you it's normal. I think we used to be very feared to say that bankers, we use mobile money, but it's true. We all use mobile money because fintechs have made banking very easy. So it's no longer, for us, it's no longer about a product. It's about convenience. It's about accessibility. Most people today do not necessarily open bank accounts because they feel they don't need a bank account. They just want to access services. Today, the likes of Apple, Amazon, they offer financial services products. So it's quite a transition for traditional bankers. But I think gone are the days where we would sit and say, no, we're sticking to our rules. That has gone. I think what we know now and we've really truly embraced is the fact that fintechs move fast, way faster than us. And then it is really how do we balance and partner to bring in a little bit more discipline, a risk framework, because this is what we understand, to put a bit of discipline and risk protection to ensure that as much as you move fast, you're also very protected so that these financial services are still trusted, because it's a business of trust. And we've also seen a lot of stories where there's significant growth in fintech and then it goes bad. So this is where both sides have to work together to ensure that I keep doing what I know best, and you do what you know best, and then we work together to amplify and scale. Because without banking, the fintechs cannot scale as well, because you need several products that the banks have. You have balance sheets, we have liquidity. So it is very important that there's collaboration, but we don't have the speed and agility that the fintechs have. And the skills with the technology, what technology is bringing today, we are not necessarily there. So we've embraced that, and we are happy that we're actually seeing a lot more inclusion today than if we were doing it on our own as bankers.
When we were preparing this podcast, I can already tell you are someone really curious, right? And the reason, like just the last example, yesterday we were at this talent and career forum, and all of a sudden there is this amazing entrepreneur, very young. He has a stablecoin rails startup that moves money through stablecoins, so using beyond blockchain technologies. And you said, I really want to meet this guy, and frankly, for a banker that is, so open to have a dialogue with someone that, of course, would put you in a comfort zone. He probably knows 10 times more than you in technologies,
Absolutely.
Right? But you know probably 10 times more than him in banking, right? So my question is not really a question, is actually something I want to talk about is, how do you keep up? Do you actually have, interaction with the team? I have, first of all, you don't even know that because you are my new friend. So we only know each other for like a few days. But I have a long-lasting relationship with Ecobank for many years. I coached the Startup Challenge for a couple of years, in Lomé. And now, I know for a fact, because there are an amazing array. Actually, most of them are women, which is amazing. We have this conversation with Sandra that I say hi already. I know that Ecobank wants to become the fintech bank, in Africa. And there is probably no better candidate because of the footprint that you have, because of the infrastructure that you have built and stuff. But before getting into that, let's get a little bit step back. How do you keep up?
Yeah, I'm not sure I keep up because there's a lot of things that and actually every time I come into a setup where you have fintechs, you have technology, today when you talk about payments, and every time we discuss about something about payments, I have so many questions because I'm curious by nature. I want to understand, and it makes me very uncomfortable when I sit and I don't understand. Of course, it's not being an expert, but at least understanding how things work and what opportunities are there. So I think for me, the only way to keep up is continuous learning. I've actually registered into an AI course because there's a lot of discussions around AI. I know the basics of what we all do, but I'm sure that AI is transforming how we deliver services, how we live, how we do everything, how the education system works. So I think the way I keep up is continuous learning. And today, if there's something that is very accessible, it is learning platforms and learning opportunities. You have, using your phone, a lot of information, a lot of webinars, and that's the only way that you can keep up. And I've also realized that when something is talked about many times, definitely that will disrupt how you live. There's a lot of talk. There have been a lot of talks on fintechs, but we're really seeing that now in our daily life. So I love working with young people, entrepreneurs, my young colleagues, because I really feel that they have a lot more to bring than they will understand first better customers today, because you're serving the youth. We're serving a generation that is, we're not the same generation. So you have to have around you the same generation that understand the trend and teaches you.
So yesterday, when we were talking about capacity building, upskilling, managing your talents, the private sector, which Ecobank clearly belongs to, was called as one of the main pillars, right? Why? Because on one hand, they're the ones who will hire, this type of talents, and on the other hand they are the ones that are creating this need for skills for which the rest of the sector will need to adapt, from the academia to the to the people who does the education courses and so forth. So actually a very concrete question, how do you even thinking when you hire someone, or do you care where he or she has studied already, which is a very non-banking thing to do, by the way. So what's your approach to talent?
My approach to talent really is, I know it's difficult to assess attitude
in a short
period, but there are signs that you get. You see it when someone is hungry. You see it when someone is passionate.
He comes prepared.
Prepared. They're very basic questions that you can ask, and you really realize this person can prepare and wants the job, and this person is complacent, and so for me the first thing, it's really the attitude and the
mindset,
hunger,
maybe.
the mindset.
I love the hunger.
Yeah, because you see, I always remember when I started working, and I think I was 2 years down my career journey, only 2 years, and I saw an a job advertisement on. There's a bank that was acquired by a private equity firm in Rwanda, and they were recruiting a head of treasury. I was only 2 years. I was a treasury officer in another bank, in a local bank.
So reporting to head of treasury, right?
Yes, okay. Reporting to head of treasury. And really 2 years, you don't know much. And I don't know what attracted me to this organization. I just looked at them and I said, I want to work here. Okay. So I applied for the job. My father is a banker, was a banker, is a retired banker. I remember when I said that I applied for the job, he told me, why do you want to run?
Start
working step by step. You will get there, but it's not the time. I said, no, let me just apply. It doesn't harm. So I went to the interview. Fast forward, I got the job, but not because I knew, but because I showed that I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to work and learn. And I think for me, that is, you can easily see that. And I believe that I don't hire for expertise, many years of and today in banking, it's not even relevant anymore, because you can have 20 years in expertise, but you don't know how to work with the partners and the ecosystem. So it is really that as a basic. But then, of course, you need a background, an educational background. I would love to hire people that have really excelled in their educational background. But I think for me, it's first the attitude, the hunger, and the skills are acquired,
So how do you interact here? I mean, Rwanda is a very sort of particular ecosystem, like inclusive instant payment system, like a poster child, which per se is already an amazing achievement. Mm-hmm. The financial inclusion is excellent. Today, we heard in a plenary, like 90-something percent, 2% of the Rwanda adult population, can manage digital payments, is amazing. Which means that there are a lot of startups that there is a lot of culture, about financial wealth. So a lot of entrepreneurs are building solutions here that, of course, they have to export because and this is how the regulators were very open-minded and smart in starting with a passport license. I'm getting to the question, which is how do you deal with the local fintechs here? There's because there is at the local, at the global level, right? But I want to share your own experience.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and this is one of the challenges that we actually have. As you say, and rightly say in the beginning, Ecobank really offers you the first choice for partnerships, because any fintech, whether local or anywhere, wants to scale. And for you to scale, you think of beyond your country. You think of the continental presence and global presence. And we offer that because we have one banking platform. However, the demand is high, but doesn't necessarily mean that the fintechs are ready. And what I want to say is that there's a lot of solutions that the fintechs are bringing, and we've seen many. And there's one brilliant young fintech that also almost won the fintech challenge, the Ecobank Fintech Challenge, a local fintech. The gap that we see is how do you make sure that they're ready to partner with the bank? Because we have requirements.
Yeah.
Because we're regulated. For us, compliance and risk is very managing risk is very critical. So how do you make sure that, yes, you have a brilliant idea, but when I test it in my platform, is it going to work in a very safe way? Because remember, we all have something to lose, but we have a lot more to lose because we can lose our license, right? So the biggest challenge that we get is getting the fintechs ready to level up to our requirements. And this is most of the time, most of the complaints from the fintechs. They say bank do not want to work with us, but we need venture capitalists because getting ready requires resources, and the fintechs do not have resources. Remember, we have shareholders that expect return today.
Yeah.
So we don't have seed capital to help you prepare. So we need an intermediary, and these are venture capitalists and seed funds that come and also incubators that help the fintech to be ready to work with us. I think that is where we still have a bit
of work to do. It's interesting, Carine, because if an entrepreneur was sitting here today with us, it would be a very interesting sort of Oxford debate, if you see what I mean, because she would probably say, actually, we are the innovators, so it's more the bank that needs to learn how to work with us, which is true in some cases.
Yeah.
And many financial institutions, including Ecobank, with initiatives like the challenge, but also like many others, they are trying. The thing is, the middle ground is what is critical to find here, because I built a few startups myself, dealing with large, not necessarily banks, but frankly, for a startup to work with a McKinsey or with an Accenture is in consulting is as complicated as for a fintech startup to work with a bank, right? So if simply by register me as a supplier, I need to go through a process that it tells me, do you have a fire alarm in your office? Because this is truly happens, right? Because you as a bank, your compliance office is telling that if I don't have an insurance against fire, maybe my office will burn and will jeopardize the relationship. But me, I'm a startup in a garage. I don't even have water, or lights, So it's a super interesting debate. But I think that for what I've understood, Ecobank effort is actually doing this at the global level, right?
Yeah.
And
that's why we have the Fintech Challenge. So I told you like last year, the Fintech Challenge is really, we've seen that the only way for us to scale is working with partners. And we see Fintechs very critical for us to serve and respond to the needs of the millions of Africans that require banking services. So, and there are so many brilliant ideas. So we've worked with partners, development financial institutions that also wants to see financial inclusion penetration in the continent, to say, let's get all these fintechs to compete, bring all the ideas. It's really an intensive you've participated, so you know. There's thousands of people applying, but for you to really come up with that idea, because the idea is not an idea that will work in Ghana or in Rwanda or in Cote d'Ivoire. It is an idea that will work in the continent. So it has to be something that you're solving a certain need that cuts across.
The scalability is essential.
The scale is very important. So that is why the Fintech Challenge is there, to ensure that those young fintechs that are bringing brilliant technology solutions are supported. There's a seed capital that we give you. We actually give you an opportunity to test your product in our platform and enable you to actually commercialize what you've developed.
You know what you made me think is that one of the startups that actually was there, and I will ask you to put back also your hat of investment banker and, let's say, wealth manager. It was actually a startup that was educating Africans to save and invest. Okay, do you see an evolution in the past, I want to say 5 years, in the way that, I want to say, mass affluence? And of course, I am mindful of the fact that the mass affluent in Africa might not be the same, might not have the same criteria of mass affluent in Europe, but the profile is the same, right? So it's someone who has, let's say, enough spare money at the end of the month to either put it in a mattress, buy a car that she doesn't need, or save it actually in some financial products.
So my investment banking hat, I wear it all the time, and I truly believe that you never have enough. Let's first start there. So for me, saving is not about I have enough, therefore the leftover I'll save. No, it is, this is what I have, and I first have to save before I spend.
Okay.
And we also think that Africans do not save, but Africans save. Why? There is this, in Rwanda we call it Ibimina, but it's group saving.
Plenty. The Rosca in the Latin America,
yes.
Plenty.
Everywhere in Africa, when you go to the market, they always have an association of, they put themselves in group of 20, and they'll save, and every month somebody will get with a lot. So for me, that already tells you that everybody has a capacity to save. What's lacking, it is
what do they do with their money, right?
What to do. Because I have, for you, when you're saving, it's one thing, but you need to also have incentives to show you that, yes, I've saved and then I earn. And still, unfortunately, our savings products are still primarily in a served in a traditional way. You need to fill a form, you need to go physically to the branch to buy a bond, and we're getting there. For me today, the most important thing is, now that the infrastructure is there, now that the partnerships are there, what type of product do you serve and keep adding to the list of the product and the services that I can access? If today we say people want to be served on the phone, we need to be able to offer wealth management using a phone, as simple as that, and starting with low value to high value. So really, for me, we are in a very interesting age. And in Rwanda, I think the vision of the government is clear. They've built the infrastructure. So now it is, how do we plug in to top and add all our services. And I think we're really in the right track. And even having the IFF here with all these new development that I'm seeing, I really think that it's just a matter of time.
So, Carine, wrapping up, I want to ask you, but you can't say David Nandua from Honeycoin because we already talked about him. Name one interesting conversation or person that you have met, or sort of reality you stumbled upon in this first half of IFF, in this day and a half that you spend here, that sort of that you want to share.
You don't want to tell. I wanted to speak about David.
Fine, David.
Really, I think he really impressed me. It's Moneycoin, right?
Yes,
it's Moneycoin, because yes, of course, he has an amazing story. Starting a company at 19, but when you were sitting with him, when you had your fire chats, he has the experience, he has the knowledge and the experience of somebody who has been doing business for 30 years. When he talks about how do you motivate your team, how do you bring on board talent, he challenged me. There's something he talked about when you recruit somebody who's doing amazingly well somewhere, and when you join your organization and he's probably not performing as you expected, we're quick to normally judge and say, we made a wrong hire. But actually, do you have a conducive workplace that allow him or her to thrive and perform better than even where he was? And it really, I kept reflecting in it, and I realized that sometimes we're trying to fit something in we need to really adjust the way we...
Instead of forcing somebody in a box,
we need to really adapt, especially the big corporate. As they said, when I was in the panel, they told me you're the only big corporate on the panel, and we do things differently. And today's generation is not looking for titles, is not necessarily looking for that. They're looking for meaningful jobs, making an impact, loving what they do. And they also work they operate very differently. Sometimes today when we are recruiting, we're still asking for CVs. But today, I can go and ask ChatGPT, do a CV for this position with this. They will give me an amazingly brilliant CV.
So it means less and less, right?
Less and less. So we really need to adjust ourselves in the way we are recruiting, the way we are nurturing, the way we are training and skilling. We need to unlearn whatever we've learned and learn new skills and really avoid being Kodak, the story of those companies that didn't want to adapt themselves to the new ways.
Carine, I think that was a perfect way to wrapping up this podcast. You did an amazing job. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much. It was lovely to be, and I'm very honored that you chose me for the podcast.
Of course. So, people, that's the CXO Conversations at IFF 2026 with Carine, the CEO of Ecobank Rwanda, and this is a wrap.